Hi, I'm Santi. I'm CEO and founder of Pathgen Diagnostik Technology. We are providing low-cost PCR and digital pathology-based molecular diagnostic platform for cancer. Our vision is to achieve global equity in precision medicine. There is actually an urgent need for molecular tests for cancer in developing countries, which I have first-hand experience. I'm a PhD qualified cancer researcher. In 2014, in the middle of working on my research in my home country, Indonesia, I was diagnosed with stage 3 colorectal cancer. At that time, I had so many questions like, why me? I'm quite young. My cousin was diagnosed with cancer too, so is this disease inherited in my family? Are the medication given to me effective? I know that many of patients with same condition as me would ask the same question. This can be addressed by molecular diagnostics, but it's hardly available in Indonesia. We know that cancer treatment is expensive, so it is important to do it right, especially in developing countries where the money is tight. Emerging technology like next generation sequencing is still not feasible. On the other hand, the current COVID-19 pandemic has increased access to PCR systems worldwide. Our product disrupts cancer management as point-of-care diagnostic tool for guiding therapy, detecting familiar risks, and predicting prognosis. This includes the PCR-based tests, the ColoMeltDx and PulmoAmDx for colorectal and lung cancer, and later, FUMI, the disruptive integrated AI-driven digital pathology platform. Our solution would impact 72,000 patients in Indonesia alone and save $22 million for ineffective therapy per year. We are aiming to penetrate to 70% of Indonesian market by inclusion into Indonesian universal health coverage and 20% of remaining developing countries market. We are offering at least 5 times cheaper product compared to other non-NGS competitors. Currently, our traction focus more on the ColoMeltDx, the molecular test for colorectal cancer. Using the $100,000 grant received last year from Islamic Development Bank, clinical validation in UK and Indonesia show 100% concordance with much expensive reference method. Our surveys showed that 90% clinicians positively anticipating the product. Early implementation will be in the fourth quarter this year in Indonesian National Cancer Center, followed by scale-up and commercialization as in vitro diagnostic tests at the first quarter of 2022 in collaboration with Bio Farma, Indonesian state-owned biotech company, one of the largest in Southeast Asia. Then within a year, the forecasted revenue will be around $1.2 million. We are collaborating with key industries for commercialization of our product, and income will be generated through royalties or shared profit. Pathgen has my unique insight as both survivor and cancer researcher. The team is supported by young and driven research and business development talent, as well as world-leading scientists, clinicians, business managers from UK, Australia, and Indonesia as advisors. Pathgen is benefiting from strong ecosystem between academia, industry, policymakers, and communities to make significant impact in healthcare sector and support UN SDGs goals. We are raising $1 million seed funding for 2 major goals: commercialization of the first iteration of our product and development of the automatic system, including our digital pathology solution for wider market reach. Please join us in this early and exciting stage, because if you talk about tech for good, then you would be talking about Pathgen. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you, Susanti. I would like to ask you if you have already had some result in some kind of cancer instead of others. If the analysis, if the whatever is more prominent in a certain specific kind of cancer, or if something that you are applying generally, and which is the toughest difficulties that you face off in the the beginning, what have you stepped up?
Yeah, so we are in a very pre-seed stage right now. So we are raising funds for our seed funding. Our first and flagship product will be the target molecular diagnostic test for colorectal cancer. And it start from my PhD research, and then we see and it's PCR based and it's low cost. And we now finished the validation, clinical validation in Indonesia. So the first development was in UK, and then we brought it to Indonesia, and we now partnering with 4 big hospital in Indonesia and finished the clinical validation. So we're ready for registration for Indonesian authority. But we want to move beyond that, because we believe that our case in Indonesia is not unique, but developing country market is very huge actually. And with many of cancer drugs, targeted drugs of patent in coming years, there will be needs for accompanying a diagnostic test. But currently the high is very high. And we think we are it is very interesting market that we able to fill in. So I hope I answer your question. It's in colorectal cancer and lung cancer first.
Thank you.
Okay, I can take the next question. Susanti, nice to meet you. Thank you for your presentation. I assume that the actual diagnostic tests, those are proprietary, right? Those were developed by your company. Is that correct?
Yeah. So
okay.
We have yeah.
So it's a very crowded market. You know, in the U.S., we actually backed a company that's doing something similar on the genetic testing side. It's a really crowded, difficult market. How are you going to differentiate yourself as you expand globally, from not just from a diagnostic perspective, but even from the software perspective?
Yeah, so we will have a huge use case first, like using Indonesian big market. We are 260 million people in Indonesia, and our use case with Indonesia will obviously support our global expansion. And how we navigate the very crowded market, indeed. Our first differentiator will be price, because we are aiming to at least maintain our price 5 times lower than the other competitors. How are we going to do that? Right now, we have a pool of talent in Indonesia, and we try to tweak, if you want, tweak the existing platform like PCR, but then use our knowledge to be able to generate a product that is cheaper and easier to use. Because even though, as you said, it's very crowded market, the implementation in developing countries is just almost none.
If you're able to achieve a 5 times price reduction with more or less equivalent performance, the rest of the world market that can't afford the 5 times greater, that could be Indonesia, of course, which is a huge market. It could also be India. It could be Southeast Asia. You know, you're looking at a very, very large market if it works as well. And so you have indications that it works as well. When do you think the strict comparisons with other market drugs or other market capabilities will be, or tests will be available? When do you expect that to happen?
So we compare, so we finished clinical validation with like around 300 cases from patients in Indonesia. And we do head-to-head comparison with the existing standard, like capillary electrophoresis, as well as sequencing. So we got and immunohistochemistry. So we got 100% concordance. With our technology. So that's why even though we just got proof of concept grant from Islamic Development Bank in 2020. We proceed quite fast, and now we got a secure agreement with Biopharma, which is government-owned body, a biotech company.
Okay,
But then we raise funding for the next stage, obviously.
Got it. Well, congratulations on the great early results.
Thank you.
All right, that's about time for now. Susanti, thank you so much for your time and presentation.
Next up, I'd like to welcome the team from Sunfox, a medtech R&D lab that develops portable and affordable medical devices for cardiac health screening and diagnosis.
So, hello everyone. I'm Rajat, founder of Sunfox Technologies. We are based out of India. We have developed world's smallest and the smartest cardiac diagnostic tool, which gives hospital-grade heart diagnosis on smartphone in less than a day's meal cost, and with the same ease we use a pulse oximeter today at home. Taking you to the global problem, cardiovascular disease and heart attacks are the reason for most deaths worldwide. Especially in this pandemic time, people suffering from cardiac disease and heart attacks have grown immensely. Cardiovascular disease have taken 3 times more life than COVID-19 in the last year. So this is how primary diagnostic tool looks like. It is called ECG or EKG, electrocardiogram, and this is a gold standard tool which is required to diagnose, primarily any kind of cardiac abnormality, cardiovascular disease, or heart attacks. And this is called a 12-lead ECG machine. And bang, this is what we have built, this tiny beautiful device, which is smaller than your keychain and lighter than your keychain actually. It gives you a 12-lead cardiac diagnostic, which is required to diagnose a heart attack or a cardiac abnormality just on the smartphone, and that too without compromising the accuracy and amount of information required by the cardiologist or a doctor to take a decision. We're making it much more easier to be used by a non-medical person, and also the reports given by Spandan are AI crafted, and you don't need any internet to get an instant report. You can simply put your phone into a flight mode event, and you can get a AI crafted report in such a way that a layman or a non-medical person can also understand that result. For a doctor, it gives a lot more data than a standard machine. On top of the same, the clinical format, which is identically, accepted by them. So it is a point of care device. In the same segment, we see, blood glucometer, a thermometer, or a pulse oximeter today. The same segment we are trying to have. It is for the same user levels. For a cardiac patient, it is fit for a self-diagnosis or a remote, consultation. For a physician or a clinic, it is a device to do instant diagnosis there without sending the patient to the diagnosis center. For a cardiologist or a cardiac surgeon, it is a fit to do remote post-operative care so that they can actually reduce the number of visits to the hospital of a patient post-surgeries. And also for the hospital, it solves the mobility issue of the current ECG machines, so that it can be available to each ward and each floor. So meet Spandan, we are bringing cardiac diagnostic closer to the people, specifically when they need it the most. This is the smallest tool, as I mentioned, which give you as good results as the standard machine with the 100 reduced weight and the size, and one-time setup cost, which is like 1/50th of the standard one, and per test cost, which is as low as 20 cents a test. And this is just the whole setup. You don't have to spend a lot, again and again. It's like one time buy, and we solve the whole problem. We're on a mission to save millions lives from preventable deaths, which goes undiagnosed every year with this tiny beautiful device. And since the size is a fraction of what a traditional machine is, so we also lead to solid electronic waste reduction in a significant way. So meet Spandan, this is a patented technology. Not only taking your electrocardiogram, we can detect 40 plus heart dysfunctions, and this tiny heart meter gives you whether you need a medical attention or not, and you can share all the reports. These are the few tests which are available on the smartphone, and what all you can do with these tests, so you can record the test when the symptoms appear, which is actually critical, because cardiovascular disease are episodic in nature, and it is critical for a doctor to see the exact report when the symptoms appear. You can do the routine monitoring, you can do the diagnosis in the case of chest pain or the physical symptoms. Continuous monitoring, it converts your phone into a bedside monitor for continuous monitoring. And on top of it, you can also do cardiac stress coughing ability, and HRV assessment in a very easy way. Talking about the traction, we have successfully validated it with all of the market segments, and recorded more than 1 million heartbeats so far with 20,000 plus patients. We are present across 250 plus clinics across India, and with more than 1,000 plus, 1,200 plus deployments. And we are the highest rated electrocardiography machine so far. We give the benchmark quality in less than your 1 day's meal cost, with the highest accuracy and amount of medical information which is required, most amount of medical information in the portability segment. And we are further bringing it down to lesser than our average haircut cost, to every home. These are some of the glimpses you can see. It is truly developed for the rural and the last mile deployments, and least medical, you can say, experts are actually using. And these are some of the testimonials. We have been even appreciated by Honorable Prime Minister of India. And these are some of the reviews. We are the highest rated electrocardiography machine as of today. And we place ourselves into the clinical diagnostic space, which goes for the masses with the highest medical amount of information as compared with others. And apart from the current product, we have also evolved the current product further. This is specifically for the COVID pandemic. We have created world's smallest ICU monitor, which converts any bed to an ICU level monitoring bed less than 200 USD within 5 minutes. And these are all the parameters which are critical to be monitored for the COVID patient with the same technology. Talking about the unit economics, even at the current scale, we are highly we are having huge gross margins, and which again have a significant share at a 100x scale too. The team consists hardcore medical professionals with rich experience in the field, and including technology. And I'm also the technology incubation manager turned entrepreneur with my tech people. And we have been backed by the great people in their field from G Healthcare, Stanford, and others. Some of the awards we have been appreciated by World Economic Forum, Foundation, National Health Authority, and a lot of other organizations. Some of the features. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajat. Judges.
Yeah, I can kick this one off. Rajat, nice presentation. This is actually pretty interesting. I'll keep my first question very simple, and then we can pass it over to the other judges. I've been looking at a few companies in this space recently, and most of them that I've seen that are very portable still have the leads. So you'll have a 6 lead or a portable 12 lead that's much lighter in weight and profile. How are you able to gather a high quality signal without the leads?
No, we do use the leads.
You do use the leads. Okay.
Yeah. And just to address the question, how we are different. So this is just an anatomy of heart. We cover all the axes of the heart, which is not covered by the single lead or the touch-based or leadless systems. So this is how we actually gather the highest quality of information, which is you can say exactly same to what you see in a hospital.
Yes, some folks. My question was similar to the Amit one, and I really have seen in the last years many, as you have described, competitors and something like that. And what is the scale that you are imaging to have in terms of quantity, and consequently, how will decrease and how fast it will decrease the cost of the device? Because it's a business that is based on a scale, making good scale. So is the industrial aspect has some important aspect.
So, what happens, what we are doing in the product to do the significant cost reduction. So we are using all of the computation power of a smartphone, okay, without without having the physical electronics for the computation on any side of it. So 80% of the part is happening inside a smartphone application. And if you look at the hardware, there is no battery on board, there is no wireless component, there is not even a single button on the device. So there is just a PCB which connects with a cable and transmits the data to your smartphone. So from the cost side, we can further go down and actually reduce the cost significantly. It's like you can have a ECG machine with the same quality, less than a cost of a thermometer.
So the device is really just a set of sensors and a transmitter.
No, so the device is just kind of a set of filters and amplifiers. That's it, nothing else. So
Yeah,
it is
okay.
just taking the data from the chest, converting into a readable format and passing into
Right.
the phone. Rest of the
Right.
job is done by the phone.
All the
Since we're carrying a computer
processing,
in our pocket, yeah.
all the processing occurs on the phone.
Yes, so we are already carrying a computer in our pocket. So why can't we use all of its beautiful computation power to do these wonders?
And I might have missed it, but what's the connectivity to the cloud? Is that
Yeah.
done through the cloud provider for the phone, or do you have a separate cloud?
Okay, so this is a kind of plug-and-play system for existing cloud providers, EHRs, EMRs, and on top of it, we provide local data to the user. So every report generates just less than 10 KB, in each report. So even in a few MBs, you can store thousands of reports, right? So the user can keep them locally. They want to share them on their personal clouds as well. We also offer the services if they want, or if we are integrating it with any of the cloud or EHR platforms. So it is kind of a no-code plug-and-play system. So you can even share your report just with a WhatsApp or a Gmail or any other communication method. We are not limiting user for that.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question about the business model. Who ends up paying for this? Is it a direct pay by the patient? I know insurance works differently in India, but I was kind of curious as to ultimately who's going to be the one footing the bill.
Okay, so we have split it and repackaged the technology in three different ways to get three different products. The first one is an individual cardiac patient who are at high risk, who are underwent any kind of cardiac intervention surgeries. So they can buy the device once and keep it at home. There is no recurring cost attached with this. Secondly, we integrate it with all of these EHR platforms, digital healthcare platforms. So we charge them pay per uses, as per pay, which is as low as like 10 cents, 20 cents based on the volume. So they don't have to pay hardware cost or any upfront cost. So they can pay pay per uses. Thirdly, we give a rental model which is as low as $20 a month without paying again any upfront cost, which is slightly advanced version to this. And they can actually keep it a number of devices again based on the volume. And both are the recurring models.
If there are no other questions, I can. I'm sorry if I missed this, but what is the market size, the potential addressable market size?
Okay, so if I talk about from the number of patients side, so as per WHO data, there have been more than 442 million patients in 2017, right? Reported by WHO. So even in India itself, in India alone, there are more than 20 lakh and 2 million deaths every year just due to the undiagnosed cardiac disease and related to the cardiovascular disease. It's a big, more than 25 billion market for point of care cardiac, space.
Okay, no more questions? Great. Thank you, Rajat.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll give it a
Thanks,
minute.
everyone. Thanks, everyone.
The Live Green Co., where they use technology to blend nature and science to develop plant-based foods for the future.
Thank you so much. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, good to go.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Priyanka, the founder at the Live Green Company. The last decade was of Plant Revolution 101, 20 billion US dollars invested and multiple success stories. But our world is in a race against time. By 2050, we have 10 billion mouths to feed. There is a 4x increase in immunity and lifestyle diseases and climate change. So it's time that we really focus on health because even the plant-based foods heavily rely on the synthetic and ultra-processed additives. Do you know that 67% of our diets today is ultra-processed food? 10% consumption of such foods can increase mortality rate by 18%. We also should look at the health of the planet in a more sustainable way. And to do that, we really need to disrupt the industry at scale and overcome industry barriers. Even the disruptors are finding this challenging. It took 11 years, 1.6 billion US dollars for Beyond Meat to achieve revenues of 400 million. So we have a disruptive solution, the Plant Revolution 2.0, to reimagine everything Nestle at scale using technology, from alternative dairy and meats to premixes and snacks. Do you know that nature has to offer us 450,000 plants, 10 million compounds, and modern science has explored less than 1%. On the other side, the industry relies heavily on these 7,000 plus synthetic additives. So we are building Charaka, a proprietary technology platform that blends ancestral wisdom of plant nutrition with biotechnology and machine learning. And it helps us replace the animal, synthetic, ultra-processed additives in our foods with 100% natural plant alternatives. Thanks to Charaka, we recently launched the world's cleanest ice cream, and we successfully replaced the milk, eggs, emulsifiers, stabilizers, anti-freezing agents, anti-caking agents with pea protein, bananas, avocado, sunflower seeds, sunflower oil, flax meal without impacting the final taste of the ice cream. They are delicious. It took us just 90 days and 15,000 US dollars in R&D, and this product is produced sustainably and packaged in compostable packaging. We want to be large-scale change agents by collaborating and not competing, and that is why we want to license our product formulations to retailers and food manufacturers. We want to protect the formulation by selling base mixes like Coca-Cola does. We ask for a Powered by Charaka logo on the packaging like the Intel Inside, and this is a huge opportunity. The clean label market is already 180 billion US dollars with no clear leader. 42% of the world's population identify themselves as flexitarians. We are switching to plant-based diets with prime focus on health and sustainability. We have validated Charaka through Sigma Alimentos, the biggest food manufacturer of Mexico. They also invested a minority investment in Live Green and have taken license for our products and offered us a joint venture. To prove Charaka's potential commercially, we launched products in the Chilean market under our own brand. And we started to take Nestle's market share. We are the biggest burger mix brand in the country in stores that we are in. And in just 5 months, we are the third biggest plant-based selling ice cream. We have proven great execution with high capital efficiency. With less than 500,000 US dollars in 20 months, we have launched 13 SKUs. We are selling in 3 countries. We have grown 7x. And we have a client pipeline of 10 million US dollars. And all this is possible because of our globally successful team of scientists, engineers, and hustlers. I have a master's in retail management. I work with brands like Target and Calvin Klein. My co-founder, Sasikant, is an honors engineer and a London Business School alumnus, and this is his third startup. Our CTO, Santosh, is an expert in data and machine learning, and Deepthi is our head of science, who's done a master's in food science and a bachelor's in toxicology. We are backed by C-level advisors and reputed investors. Finally, it is no more about a few people living green perfectly. It's about billions doing it, even if it's imperfect. So let's live green and let's start now. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Judges, for your questions.
I guess I can start. Priyanka, can you talk a little bit about, there is this movement towards clean label, and I think a lot of the big food brands are internally, working on R&D themselves to figure out how to replace some of these, synthetic elements of their label. I guess for your platform, how do you see defensibility in the long term? And do you see competition, internally from some of these players who would figure out their own way to kind of switch out the synthetics?
Yeah. So in terms of the industry definitely is trending to clean label and people are looking for solutions. But we see that the approach of Live Green Co is innovative because when we start with Charaka, there are 450,000 plants and where do you really start from? And all these companies are trying to look at these huge databases and start from not knowing where to start. At Live Green Co, what we do is our R&D speed and go to market is faster. Like we worked with Sigma Alimentos, the biggest food manufacturer in Mexico, and they wanted us to replace additives in one of their best-selling products. So what we did is that we looked at our databases and we went at the functionality level, primarily because we look at the databases from Ayurveda, the Chinese medicine, Japanese medicine, and we were able to give them alternatives. So what we are doing is we are not giving them an ingredient replacement, but we are giving them an overall formulation, and that is going to give a speed to market. By the time these companies research and come up with alternatives, by then Charaka would have already discovered a lot more and we would have gone into newer product lines and newer categories.
So maybe I want to make sure I understand it. So with the companies that you're going to license to, like the example you gave, you're almost going to be like a faster, cheaper back-end sort of R&D group and using sort of the AI and all of that to identify the formulations for them. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So
And then,
what we would, for example, I can give you an example. So if we have launched the world's cleanest ice cream in Chile with none of these stabilizers and additives in it, and if we have to take it, say, to the Mexican or the US market, we work with, say, Target Corporation or HEB, and we give them a innovative product pipeline very, very quick in response to market. And what we do is, like an R&D lab, we don't charge them a fixed fee, but we do a licensing where we start making revenue for every unit that's sold. And that is the differentiation in pricing.
and as you move forward with those two sort of examples that you have today, the license side, and then also where you rolled out your own product, what do you anticipate to be the major sort of revenue driver, if you will, for the business as you continue to scale?
As we continue to scale, we see that we will go the B2B licensing way. We have launched our product lines in Chile just as proof of concept that the technology works, it has commercial potential. But we know that if you have to go global and go fast, to overcome statutory regulations, to overcome market barriers, and to overcome scale of production, we prefer going through the licensing route and thereby creating a larger impact in multiple geographies simultaneously with the biggest players there.
I guess a follow-up question from me is, again, thinking about different or competitiveness, like how do you protect your IP? Like in that example where you work with Target on an ice cream, right? What if they decide to do an iteration, a new launch, slightly different branding or whatnot? Can they just, take the formulation that you previously provided them and be able to use that?
That's a great question. So what we do is when we say that we will work with Target and give them, say, the world's cleanest ice cream on their shelf with their brand, we ask them for a powered by Charaka logo, which is in the back of their pack like the Intel. But when we share the formulation with the co-packer, we do not share the complete formulation. We have a black box that we sell. And the black box is like the Coca-Cola recipe, which is difficult to reverse engineer because we would be using things like in the ice cream, avocados, bananas, flaxseed in a combination to behave like, say, an emulsifier, stabilizer, which the industry hasn't used. So to reverse engineer the reason why we use what we use, it's fairly challenging. And that is where it is a very, very difficult process to reverse engineer. And that is why Target would stay with us because they have to buy the base and the most core ingredient to the final formulation from us.
How willing do you think the big players in food industry be willing to share this? Well, not IP, but the revenue from each product.
Right. So in terms of the big players, Pablo, I think that's a great question. At this point of time, we were having conversations with Givaudan, where the current approach that we have of licensing and making revenue by product will work well for small and medium. But if we have to start working with the Kellogg's or the Unilevers or the Nestle's, they would want complete control on IP. And that is an iterative process that we are currently looking at. How do we work around when we work with really, really large players? But as of today, Sigma Alimentos is the biggest food manufacturer of Mexico, and they have invested in us, and they're being our first client to the technology to help us really ease out this overall business when it comes to working with the biggest guys in the business. Thank you, Pamela.
Great. Thank you,
Can I ask-
Priyanka.
ask
Oh, I'm sorry, of
one-
course.
Sorry, one last question. Just in terms of maybe your marketing and outreach approach. So clearly in the food industry, I mean, there are just a number of very real consumer trends that are there and are opportunities for businesses. And then there is really, again, the sort of focus on development and the sustainable development goals as we're here, as a part of this competition. How much education about the SDGs and about sort of tech for good takes place in your outreach to customers, or do you sense that, I guess I'm asking a question about sort of consumer education, consumer outreach, if that makes sense. It's not very well formulated, I know, but I'm a bit curious about sort of how your customers are reacting to this and what you think their education and understanding of many of these trends and these development issues really are.
Right. So with respect to that question, like when we deal with our clients, we are very, very active with educating, because for mass adoption to happen, we are creating these amazing solutions which are alternative to dairy, to meat, which are one of the biggest culprits when it comes to climate change. And we are in the process of educating our clients, educating our customers. When it comes to our B2C approach, where it is our test market, in our pilot market, Chile, we are doing a lot of education, a lot of awareness to social media, digital. But when we are working with our clients like Sigma Alimentos, who have taken our licensing for our product lines, we work with them on their outreach strategy for the market, because we are closer to the SDG goals. We are more passionate and have this purpose of why we even started the company. And that is the knowledge that we are trying to pass on to these large companies so they can in turn educate. So that is what we do today.
Great. Thank you, judges, for your questions. Thank you, Priyanka.
I have one last add-on. So for Pablo, during his question, Pablo, at this point of time, when we are currently talking to Sigma Alimentos, we make around 25 cents per ice cream sold. And the idea is that we have to also do that with large scale. And that is where we are still figuring out dynamics. Yeah, that's the last add-on. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Such fantastic companies that we had the pleasure to listen to today. My name is Michael Kapps. I'm one of the founders of Vitalk. I'm actually Canadian, but our company is based out of Brazil. And to the right, you'll be able to see the fantastic founding team that we have available. So what we saw in the pandemic is mental health really became a big issue. And especially in Brazil, it's a really, really big issue. Brazil is one of the most anxious countries in the world. And, it could be something that affects your colleague at work, could be your daughter. But the problem is, in countries like Brazil, therapy is for the rich, right? If you do 4 sessions a month, that's about half a minimum wage. So it's really not that accessible. We believe it has to do with the fact that therapy is pretty inefficient, right? Therapists are still usually just using paper and pen. They're not really relying on data, and they can only really treat one patient at a time. So what Vitalk tries to do is we try to apply data and automation to the therapeutic process. We use highly trained therapists and a series of digital tools to try to make that therapy process more efficient and therefore reduce the cost. One way we do this is with our virtual mental health assistant, Vicky. She helps guide patients through their mental health care treatment and journey. So how does it work? Vicky helps with all aspects of the therapeutic process, from diagnosis to matching, to actually monitoring symptoms over time. And then also she leads a number of CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, exercises. So these are hundreds of exercises that we've built with our therapists, and it's something that they can actually prescribe to patients to do in their own time. And therapists also, instead of just relying on their own experience or based on maybe hundreds of patients, they actually receive data on therapy sessions going on with thousands of patients from hundreds of other therapists. So they can be a little bit more effective in how they make those decisions. The interesting thing is, as we've been able to decrease the amount of time that a therapist spends per patient from 1 hour to just 15 minutes a week, which means that the same therapist can actually treat 4 patients in the same time that they were treating just 1. And this has an effect on the price. We've been able to drop the price significantly, making therapy a lot more accessible and still maintaining a pretty healthy margin. The interesting thing is we have an app and a web platform. Users on average spend about 3 hours on the app per month. So it's similar to traditional therapy. They like the digital hybrid approach. And we have a fairly high retention rate. So, about 70% of the patients stay on in subsequent months, which seems to be higher than even some traditional therapy and sort of digital other digital players that exist on the market. We even have some evidence to show that this treatment is actually effective as well. So it's just as for specific types of conditions, especially moderate anxiety, depression, it seems to be as effective as this approach. And the interesting thing is, as we get more patients using our system, our chatbots, our algorithms get a little bit better, that our therapists become a lot more effective. And then this decreases increases our margins, decreases our prices, and we can add more and more patients on board. And being a social impact company, we have access to a lot of data. We work a lot with the public sector, with international organizations, and also have a free app which helps us over time improve the quality of those exercises and other digital tools. Currently, we're selling to employers, right? So this is how we monetize ourselves. And we've just launched about 18 months ago. We've acquired more than 50 clients. We're covering about 200,000 lives currently. And we've been growing about 20% month over month just in the last 6 months. We expect that to double. Our goal is to become Latin America's first digital therapeutic. Just gonna end off now on my last slide. We're just about to close our Series A, just passed through due diligence. And so we're looking, if anyone's interested in strategically maybe putting in a small ticket in this round, but we'll be working towards our Series B in the next couple of months and looking into regional and potentially international expansion of our solution. So let's make mental health care more affordable. Great, thank you so much.
Yes, please, Vitalk, may I know what is the use of the fundraising that you're gonna do, to what is the main objective and main use of the things that you're gonna do?
We primarily, there's going to be a couple areas on the product side. We're going to be increasing sort of the scope of the product. In other words, much more content, and improve the actual therapist platform to try to make it even more efficient over time. The other thing is we want to publish more studies, right? We want to show even more evidence that this is something that is just as effective as other treatments, which will help us along the path of being Latin America's first sort of digital therapeutic, right? But then primarily it's to double down on the growth that we've been having here. So we've been growing along the enterprise route, and we're just entering into the insurance market as well. So we want to continue that. Growth, show that it's at least growing very, very well nationally. Brazil is a market of 200 million, 220 million people. We can show that nationally and show potential applications in other regions, like in Mexico and potentially other countries. I think this will set us up nicely for a Series B, where we'll be able to grow this even further. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go next. Just want to talk a little bit about your the model in terms of onboarding your physicians. Are these employees of the company, of your company, or are these contracted physicians?
They're currently, so these are therapists, right? So they're licensed therapists. They're contracted, but we have so we contract a certain number of hours, but we have a really good quality control of everything that happens in the platform, right? So how many messages are they spending to the patients? What is the clinical outcomes of that patient? How engaged is that patient? What is the retention rate? So we can kind of control it. It's I would say it's sort of like a marketplace, but we have much tighter controls because we can curate it. In the long run, we hope this to be a much more even open-ended platform. So this is something where if I'm a therapist and I want to make some more money, instead of just treating one high-income patient, I can use the Vitalk platform to treat 4 or 5, make more money, and actually treat more people. But currently, they're contracted because we're mainly generating revenue sources from employers, right? So that's the way that we're looking at it. Yeah.
So 2 more questions. What are your gross margins, number 1? And number 2, have you been able to prove out improved outcomes? Have you been able to prove out some form of an ROI for your customers?
Yes, it's a good question. When we sell to the enterprise, we sell on a per member per month basis, per employee. We have very, very high gross margins. They're about 80% because actually therapy use is not that high. However, we have a number of digital tools that engage the entire employee base, and that's what the customers tend to pay for. And so, as a result, we've been able to show very, very little churn in the customers, a fairly high retention and upsell rate among our customers. So as a tool for the employer, it's been very, very effective. It's something that they haven't had in the past. I think as we want to move forward in the future, in the next 2 to 3 years as a digital therapeutic, we're going to have to publish more studies. We have this, one study which I showed, which is in Frontiers. I think we're going to do more randomized control trials. But currently, the goal is to build our base, right? And we have 200,000 covered lives. I think we're going to hit in the millions in the next year. And to do that, we have to grow across employers and insurance, and they're looking for other types of value propositions. Let's say not necessarily the recovery time. So that's sort of the way we're thinking about it.
I have more questions, but I'll pass it over to Ray.
Of course.
Get in his.
Please go ahead. You're asking great questions.
Okay. So how long does, you're viewing this as a digital therapeutic, but in terms of your stickiness, you only just showed through month 2. Do you have the kind of the stickiness data through month 6? And typically, how long does an employee stay on this program? Is it indefinite, or is there a kind of a set time frame?
Yeah, no, very, very good questions. So we have data through the 6th month. It's generally a 70% retention for month over month. So it ends up falling, continually falling, which is just still a better curve than what we've seen in traditional therapy, which I think is interesting. We have different sets of, when an employer actually hires us, we have different types of employees. We have, the clinical, the subclinical. And so we actually measure the average engagement rate of the employees. So the sign-up rate within a population, the sign-up rate is typically covers around 50%, which is quite nice. So 50% of your employees would actually log on to some of our systems, and then we would have about a 30% engagement rate month over month. And we have that data for now. The first customers are entering now the first year, and that seems to be a rate that's maintained. So they're interacting with some version of the app at that rate over time. The guys who are doing the therapy is that 70% month over month rate that seems to be consistent over time. And then it flatlines around 30% at month 6, more or less. So that's sort of what we're thinking of. That, and obviously we can measure those metrics and we can improve them. So as the digital aspect collects more data and the interventions become more diverse, we can actually personalize them better to the patient and increase that retention rate. So it becomes much more relevant to that specific patient. So you don't compromise retention as you scale up, right? And as you keep lowering that price to make it more accessible. That's sort of the thinking that we have.